To order.
And should we start? We're started. Yeah. Okay. And we're recording.
My name is David McCullough. I'm the board chair for the Historical Resource Board, and it looks like we got somewhat of a light agenda. It doesn't look too bad today, but we'll kind of try to move through this relatively quick. Let's see. The time right now I have is 1:02. And to kick things off here, Ms. Seeger, do you have a preamble you'd like to make?
Yes. Good afternoon. I'm Suzanne Seeger, Senior Planner in the Historical Resources section of Development Services. Today's Historical Resources Board meeting is being conducted under the provisions of Executive Order 2920, which suspends certain requirements of the Ralph M. Brown Act. In the interest of public health and safety, this meeting will be conducted via teleconference. Per the executive order, there will be no members of the public in attendance at this meeting. In lieu of in-person attendance, members of the public may submit their comments online via the Development Services webpage. In addition, this meeting is being recorded and will later be made public via the City of San Diego's Public Hearings YouTube channel. If you would like to join by phone, please call in. The number is 699-254-5252. Today we are using Zoom as our meeting platform. Please note the buttons on your Zoom meeting bar that pop up when you move the mouse. Share screen will enable an applicant to give a presentation, and the microphone is to mute and unmute. Please remember to stay muted when you are not talking and to unmute yourself when you speak. When wanting to participate in a discussion, please virtually raise your hand and Chair McCullough will call on you in the order entered. Please refrain from using the meeting chat in order to comply with the Brown Act. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. I'm going to go through the roll call. Just please make sure to unmute yourself as I go through this. Board Member Hutter.
Here.
Coyle.
Here.
Bowen.
Here.
Corleone.
Here.
And Harleman's not going to be in attendance. Pittman.
Here.
Stankowski. Doesn't look like she's with us yet. Winter.
Here.
And again, Dr. Woods is not going to be on the call. So I think that's it. Did I see a note about, I believe somebody had to leave early today. Maybe it was Ms. Coyle. Is that correct?
Yes, it may be closer to 4, but I will have to leave early.
Okay, we'll do our best to get through things prior to that. Okay, so great. Well, thank you. Also joining us today, both virtually and in person, are city staff, including Program Manager Anna McPherson, Development Project Manager Kelly Stonko, Deputy City Attorney Lauren Hendrickson, Historical Resource staff members Emma Haggerty, Megan Basic, Leah Koleski, and Alvin Lynn, as well as our hearing support staff member Sheila Santos and Caroline Garcia, which, by the way, Suzanne, I think yours was saying Caroline Garcia earlier. Are you guys sharing a connection?
Caroline Garcia is going to be taking over for Sheila, who has stepped in as our board secretary for a very long out of class assignment, and we are so grateful. But Caroline, it will be on permanent assignment with us. So get used to her name.
Okay, sounds good. So why don't we start off here with the approval of the minutes, and we actually have two this month to get through: April 22nd, 2021, and then June 24th, 2021. I'm not really sure why we missed one, but nevertheless, is there anybody that'd like to make a motion, or are there any discussion, comments, corrections that need to be made before we move into a vote?
Chairman, I have one item on the April minutes, page 5, item 6. The period of significance should be a number in the 1950s. There's a typo. It says 1930s. So that's one correction. And then may I also speak about the June minutes?
Absolutely.
In the June minutes, there's one typo on page 3 under item 2. The word original is misspelled. That's it.
Mr. Bowen, what would we do without you? The human dictionary. Anyways, so is there anybody that's willing to make a motion with those corrections? Or is there any further discussion?
I'll move to approve with those corrections.
Okay, and we'll, I guess we'll go ahead and vote on both months then. So both April 22nd and June 24th.
I'll second, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Coyle. So we have a motion, a second. Any further discussion? Okay, I'll call the vote. Just go down the list. Mr. Hutter,
Aye.
Ms. Coyle,
Aye.
Mr. Bowen,
Aye.
Ms. Corleone,
Aye.
Mr. Pittman,
Yes.
and that's a yes for me. So that's unanimous. We still haven't gotten Ms. Stankowski, have we?
Aye.
Yeah,
Mr. Winter?
hello?
You know what? I removed you from the list because for some reason I thought you were, I had a note that you're not going to be here today. So I'm sorry about that. Yes, Mr. Winter. That
Aye.
was a yes. Okay, thank you.
Ms.
Correct.
Jankowski.
Need that quorum, man. Go.
Ms. Jankowski, I believe, is in the meeting.
Oh, okay. Ms. Stankowski, that was for we just voted on the approval of the minutes for April 22nd and June 24th. I guess we'll just kind of go back. Are you okay? Would you like to vote on that or?
No, sir, for expediency, let's go ahead. And I apologize. I had a bit of a medical issue today.
Okay, no problem. I hope you're okay. So,
I'm trying to get my bloody camera to work and it's not cooperating today.
okay, no problem. All right, let's go ahead and move on here to the non-agenda public comments, issues within the jurisdiction of the Historical Resources Board not previously heard or on the agenda. And I do have one speaker slip for Christopher Bowman. Is Christopher available?
Yeah.
Go to Chris.
Mr. Bowman is in the meeting and we're just working on getting him
Okay.
able to speak.
No, just put allowed to talk on the.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello. Hi, everybody. Thank you for hearing me. Does everybody hear me well?
Yes, we can. If you could keep it to 3 minutes or less, we'd greatly appreciate that.
Of course. I have a family history in San Diego that I've known about and our family has known about. Every time you go to Old Town or any shop with historical books, our name is in it. And I just, through Ancestry, have the kind of provenance to have a land grant and different documents supporting that. The ranch house that my family grew up on is on Monument Road, very close to the border, the Manser family. The ranch house is there. They built the recent Tijuana River Valley campground site, very close to it. And I'm wondering if anything can be done of just the section that the ranch house is on, because my grandmother would have been the last generation to grow up on that ranch house. And it's kind of just ruins of it, but is there anything that can be saved or rescued or something?
You kind of broke up there. Was the question, can the house be saved or rescued?
Well, there's no house. It's just kind of ruins, but maybe
Okay.
the lot designated or donated or given. I know it's owned by the city. I found that out recently, that the city of San Diego owns the land that it's on now, but I have all the current supporting documents of land grant ownership and on the Bureau of U.S. Land Management and all that, with the exact tract area and stuff.
Yeah. I think, I mean, I'll probably defer this to staff, but I think typically it requires somebody bringing, an application and preparing a report for this sort of thing to happen. I don't know, is there any way the staff, I guess, if it's owned by the city,
Correct.
then, is there a way that this could be?
Yeah. Mr. Baumann, I would encourage you to make an appointment with Historical Resources staff on the Development Services webpage,
Yes.
using bookings, and we can discuss a complete nomination form.
Very good. I have that number, but I do call and it goes straight to voicemail, and I leave voicemails. I don't know.
We'll send you an email so you
Okay.
can get
Follow up.
a good appointment. All right.
Of course. Thank you very much. Thank you all.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I have no other speaker slips for non-agenda public comments, but I'll give it a second here. If there's anybody that'd like to speak, just raise your hand here and I'll give it a
Chair
second.
McCullough, Mr.
Yes.
Kaminsky is in the meeting and he has his hand raised and he's ready to speak.
Okay, Mr. Kaminsky, please, 3 minutes or less.
Thank you. I'm sorry I didn't have time to submit a web form for this. And it may be premature a discussion. So the Salk Institute is now circulating through Development Services for a process to approval for its new East Torrey Pines building. This has been a controversy since the early or the late 2000s, I would say 2005, 6, 7, 8. The Salk Institute is a local register nominated site in 91. It received the AIA 25-year award in 92. In 2005, the State Office of Historic Preservation forwarded its nomination to the National Register for listing. It was opposed by Salk. In 2006, the HRB heard more proposals from the Salk Institute related to potential master plan. In 2006, it was given the Grand Onion by the Orchids and Onions here in San Diego, the master plan. In 2008, their master plan was approved by the City Council. And in 2008, the World Monuments Fund noted to put it on their watch list because of the proposed master plan. So this building, this East Torrey Pines building, is moving further east along Torrey Pines Road, and in my opinion will further diminish and impair the historical integrity of the Salk. Since this is a process 2, only city staff will look at it and determine whether it meets the standards or not. And I just wanted to alert the board that this project is moving forward and, in my opinion, will forever harm the Salk Institute. Thank you.
Fascinating. Thank you for giving us that update. Is there anyone else from the general public that would like to make a comment at this time?
Well,
Yes, Ms. Cole?
yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to ask staff, is it true that relative to the Salk, that would only go to staff and not come to the board, even though it's a listed property, both locally apparently and on the National Register?
Yes, Ms. Coyle, I have some knowledge of this project. And a site development permit was for a substantial alteration was previously approved on the site in 2008. As Mr. Kaminsky said, it was approved by City Council. And the property is currently in for a substantial conformance review. So what staff is looking at is to see if some alterations to the design still meet the intent of the site development permit that was previously approved. This will be done at the staff level. However, if staff does feel like it goes beyond what was approved within the original site development permit, it could potentially become another site development permit process for a substantial alteration. However, staff has not finished the review at this time.
So did the prior site development permit come before a prior HRB board?
Yes, correct. It did.
And when was that? Do you recall?
The final approval of the project was in 2008.
Okay, so 13 years ago.
Correct.
Is there like an age limit on that kind of action or not? Or does the permit, stay good forever?
I can't speak to that right now, but I could potentially have some answers for you on that.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Sorry.
Yes, Mr. Pittman.
So Suzanne, can I ask another question on that? So site development permit, would that have included construction drawings, or are we talking about a planning document? Was the approval that went to HRB based on a construction drawing, I guess, or schematic design? Let's ask that.
There was elevations of the proposed east building, new east building, that called out materials for the exterior, and there were also floor plans. So it's not your full-on ministerial construction drawings, but they were, discretionary level approval.
What would constitute non-conformance with that plan? If materials were changing, if building heights changed, if location of the building were to change, would that require it be reevaluated by HRB?
Really fast, sorry, this is Deputy City Attorney Lauren Hendrickson. Good afternoon, board members. I am going to have to stop this to an extent. We can't have a substantial discussion on this item since it was not agendized. So to comply with the Brown Act, if this is something that the board would like to discuss, maybe this can go on a future agenda for an information item, just to allow members of the public to chime in if they would like.
Okay, so I want to, rather than have any more discussion, let's make sure that the public is done with their comments. And if that's the case, we'll move on here shortly to board discussion. And if we want to schedule something for later, we can talk about that then. But for right now, any other comments from the general public or statements that would like to be made? Okay, so see no more hands up. I'm going to close the non-agenda public comments, and we'll now go ahead and move on to administrative items, board administrative matters, and general information. And we'll start with general information. Ms. Seeger.
Prior to today's meeting, the board members were emailed the HRB criteria guidelines, the motions and findings form for historical designation, and correspondence from Save Our Heritage Organization for items 1, 4, and 7.
Okay, great. And the next thing on our list here is general board member comments. So I think this would be the time. I don't think we want to continue that discussion, but if we want to make a recommendation or something, then now I think would be the time to do that. Ms. Coyle?
Yes, I have a comment and then a recommendation. First, my comment is I'd like to note that Sesh, Walter and Judith Monk's home on La Jolla Shores Drive was listed in the National Register of Historic Places under criteria A and C on July the 12th. My recommendation would be relative to the public comment and the board questions on the Salk Institute would be that substantial conformance review and site development permit be brought to us on an informational basis in a timely manner to address my question and Mr. Pittman's question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think I'll leave that up to staff. If you can either comment on that or respond, or we can just move on.
Staff can look into bringing the Salk Institute substantial conformance review to the board.
Okay, thank you for that. Okay, let's see. So any other general board member comments? Yes, Mr. Bowen.
I wanted to report to the board that on June 29th, there was an appeal of 550 Washington. Our designation was overturned by the city council. And for Mr. Kaminsky's information, Steve Whitburn, who's the District 3 council person, kind of took the lead in the discussion by the city council, and he, along with everyone else, voted in favor of overturning the designation. The basis for it was there was an error of fact in our report. The building was not a national award winner, it was a regional award winner. So that was the rationale for overturning the board's nearly unanimous decision.
Okay, thank you. Any others? Okay, so then let's go ahead and move down to conflict of interest declarations. And I believe, Mr. Pittman, you have a conflict of interest on 1 and 4.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Can you just give us a quick reason?
Sure. On number one, financial, my wife prepared conceptual plans for the homeowner. And on number four, my wife's firm was retained by UC San Diego to prepare the designation for IGPP.
Okay, great. Thank you. And are there any other conflicts of interest? Oh, Ms. Coyle.
Yeah, out of an abundance of caution, I'm going to recuse on item 4 as I may be commenting on that nomination to the State Historic Resources Commission on it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'm just making note of that. Okay, any ex parte? Oh, well, any others before we move on here? Okay, ex parte communications that have occurred? Or yes, Ms. Coyle.
On both items 1 and 6, the homeowner came out while I was there walking around the property, etc. But that will not influence my decision on either of them.
Okay, thanks for making that clear. Mr. Bowen?
Also for item 1, the same thing happened with me. Thank you.
Okay, but you don't, it's not going to influence your decision, I would imagine.
That's correct.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I'll join the chorus. I had a very pleasant conversation with the homeowner at for item 1, but it will not impact my decision one way or the other.
Okay, perfect. Any others? Okay, how about failure to visit designation sites, invocation of waiver?
Yeah, I couldn't go to the item 1 because I was out of the country.
Yeah.
During last weekend. So.
Okay, but were you able to review the documentation?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And it's really good documentation. So I feel comfortable.
Okay, Ms. Corleone?
You're on mute, Dr.
You're on mute.
Corleone.
Sorry, I was not able to visit item 1 or 7 last weekend either. I was traveling.
Okay, and again, you were able to review the documentation?
Oh, yes, I was able to do that. So absolutely.
All right.
Thank you.
So, okay, thank you. I mean, I think at this point, we probably need to vote on, on whether or not we should have them proceed with hearing those items based on that information. I personally don't have an issue with that. I think the documentation was relatively clear and there's some good photography in there. So I don't know if anybody has any concerns about that. So I guess, I will motion the invocation of waiver for the people that weren't able to visit the sites.
Chair McCullough, this is Deputy City Attorney Lauren Hendrickson. Can you please specify what item numbers you're invoking the waiver for?
Yeah, it looks like it's 1, and I believe is it 7? Is that right? 1 and 7.
And then also, the board procedures set out specific requirements as to what must be met in order for that waiver. So the requirements are physical visits to the site would not significantly contribute to an understanding or appreciation of the historicity of the proposed site. The availability of access to the site is limited, and particular knowledge or expertise of a board member who didn't visit the site would contribute. So if you could please just specify which one of those criteria.
It would be the second. In both cases, there's only a gap, a time frame that you could visit the sites.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Any seconds?
I'll second, David.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Pittman. Any discussion?
Yeah, just a procedural question. Can we vote on this or no? I don't.
I have no idea. I would say yes, but that would be a question for our attorney.
Yes, hello, you can vote on this. Thank you for asking, Mr. Winter.
Okay. Great, thank you. So I'll start off with a vote here. Mr. Hutter,
Aye.
Coyle,
No.
Bowen,
Aye.
Corleone,
Aye.
Pittman,
Aye.
Stankowski.
Aye.
Okay. Winter,
Aye.
and that's yes for me. So that carries. And so with that, we'll go ahead and then move on to, let's see, where am I on my list here? Okay, the staff report, historical resources section, DSD. Ms. McPherson, do you have a report?
Actually, good afternoon. Actually, I'd like to thank Board Member Bowen for giving the information item that I was going to explain to you, the council action that occurred on June 29th, and I have nothing else to report.
Okay, great, thank you. And historical preservation planning section, planning department, is Ms. Stonko on the, oh yeah. Ms. Stonko, do you have anything to report?
Ms. Stonko actually sent me a message prior to today's meeting that she wasn't going to be able to attend, but there is nothing to report out from planning.
Okay, great. What about subcommittee report outs, policy and archaeological and tribal cultural resources? Ms. Seeger?
For more information regarding the archaeological and tribal cultural resources subcommittees, please visit the Development Services website.
Okay, design assistance, Ms. Seeger?
The July Design Assistance Subcommittee meeting was canceled, but the next regularly scheduled meeting will be virtually held on Wednesday, August 4th, 2021 at 4 p.m.
Okay,
One quick thing, we used to get the emails of the cancellation. We haven't gotten the last two. We just found out because we had to look on the website. I don't know if there's just FYI.
Okay, thank you for letting us. We'll make sure that happens.
Okay, thank you. Request for continuances or withdrawals. I have number 6 on here. Let's see, 1773 Torrance Street has requested a 60-day continuance. Any others?
No, I believe that's it.
Okay, so is there a board member that would like to motion, or is there any comments or concerns about the 60-day continuance?
Chair McCullough, this is Deputy City Attorney Lauren Hendrickson again. The public should be, just a reminder that the public should be provided with the opportunity to speak on the continuance in accordance with the Brown Act.
Okay. Thank you. Then we'll, I think that's the first time I've heard that, but that's good to know. Okay, so why don't we open it up to public discussion? Is there anybody from the public that would like to speak on the continuance of item 6?
Chair McCullough, I believe Kylie Wallace is here representing the owner. Mr. Wallace, if you would like to speak.
Okay, yeah, Mr. Wallace.
Yeah, I just wanted to request a 60-day continuance. The interior atrium spaces on this structure are an important feature of the original design and Homer Delowy's redesign of the building. And I'd like to create a virtual tour or arrange something with staff so that an in-person tour could be made available. And that's the purpose of the 60-day continuance. And I can take my answers later or via email. And also Soho and several others will be submitting letters in support that I'd like to get as well.
Okay, makes sense. Any other public comment? Okay, seeing none. Close public comment, open it back up to the board. Is there anybody that would like to motion the continuance, or is there any discussion that we'd like to have in regards to this? Questions? Yes, Ms. Coyle.
I'd be happy to make that motion for a 60-day continuance on item 6, 1773 Torrance Street.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Coyle. A second?
Second.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Pittman. Any discussion?
I would just say that, given that you can't see very much from the street side, that, a visit that allows us to go to see the atrium would probably be very helpful. Thank you.
Okay, agreed. Thank you. Any others?
Chair McCullough, this is Deputy City Attorney. For purposes of noticing, I just wanted to see if that motion was meant to be for a date certain or just specific 60 days.
I guess that would be a date certain for 2 meetings from now. So that would be what, the September board meeting, assuming that that's not already all full by staff. Thank you for that clarification.
September 23rd.
Okay, I'm going to call the vote then on this. So starting with Mr. Hutter,
Aye.
Coyle,
Aye.
Bowen,
Aye.
Cordelleone. I think you're muted. I think that was an aye. So, but maybe if you could, I mean, you're okay. Yeah, it was. She's got her finger up on that. So, Pittman,
Aye.
Stankowski,
Aye.
Winter,
Aye.
and that's a yes for me. That's unanimous. So, thank you for that, and we'll see you, Mr. Wallace, in 2 months, 60 days on this one.
Or maybe
Okay,
before.
so moving on down the agenda here, we have the next thing is the request for items to be placed on the consent agenda. And it looks like we have quite a few things, although I do have speaker slips. And I'm just kind of looking at the speaker slips. However, I think most of the speaker slips are in favor.
Chair
but
McCullough,
yes,
just prior to the meeting, there was a speaker slip in opposition to item 4. So we will need to pull that for discussion.
okay. So we'll pull number 4.
And also as a reminder, Mr. Pittman has to recuse on item 1, so we'll need to take it separately.
Okay, thank you for that reminder. Okay, so just to go down the list here, item 1 is a Robert and Rebecca Libner William Ivan house located at 807 La Jolla Rancho Road. Item 2 is the Fred Hilbrun house located at 2530 and 2532 A Street. Item 3, the John H. Lovett Spec House, number 1, located at 4351 Bancroft Street. Item 4, the Institute of
No. Didn't that one get pulled?
Yeah, correct.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. Okay. Yes. Item 5, the Prospect Center building located at 1020 Prospect Street. And so just to recap, items 1, 2, 3, and 5, and we'll take item 1 separately so that Mr. Pittman can recuse himself from the vote. So why don't we start with that one? Is there anybody that would like or would be willing or interested in motioning for item 1 to be placed on consent?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, great. Thank you. And any discussion? Okay, hearing none, I'll call the vote.
Can I just say, I'm the homeowner. I just want to thank you all for considering our house for designation. And
Thank you. I'll give you a second. I'll give you time to, because we do want to hear from you, but give us 1 second just to call
Chair
the vote.
McCullough, I apologize. Deputy City Attorney Lauren Hendrickson. The public should also be provided the opportunity to speak on the consent agenda in accordance with the Brown Act. So I don't know if you want to call public comment prior to the vote.
Okay. Sure. Well, I stand corrected. And I guess we'll open it for the public comment. Ms. Gand, go right ahead. Ordinarily, we do this after the vote, but is there anything you'd like to say, I guess, before we call the vote?
Oh, thank you, but not really. Just I wanted to thank everyone, and IS Architecture is here, and let's see if they have something they wanted to say.
Ms. Stiegler? Or is there anybody else from the general public that would like to speak on behalf of this item?
Thank you for hearing the project and taking it on consent. Much appreciated. And we have no objection to being heard on consent. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? Okay, so I'm gonna close this item for public discussion, and we do have a motion, I believe. Don't we have a motion and a second, both on this? Okay, any further discussion? Board member? Yes, Ms. Corleone.
Are we voting on the motion to pull item 1 from the consent agenda?
No, we're voting to keep it on the consent agenda.
To keep it on the consent agenda. Thank you. I'm sorry, with all that intermediate discussion, I lost that trail. So thank you.
Yeah, my bad on that one. So anyways, I'll go ahead and then, if there's no further discussion, call the vote, starting with Mr. Hutter.
Aye.
Ms. Coyle,
Aye.
Mr. Bowen,
Aye.
Ms. Corleone.
Aye.
Let's see here. Ms. Stankowski,
Aye.
Mr. Winter,
Aye.
and that's affirmative from me. So that holds. And so really quick, we're going to take the others, but I think before we do that, why don't I just go ahead and give you, Ms. Gann, do you anything further you'd like to say at this moment? Congratulations on your home. It's a beautiful house.
So did that mean you just voted in favor of consent?
That's
Since I'm
correct.
not sure. Okay, thank you all very much. We are going to do a great job being stewards of this home, and we want to preserve it for many generations. So this is super important, the work that you do. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
I'm just curious, are you sitting in the kitchen right now?
I am. So you can see
That's
some
great.
beams here, and it's an incredible
Beautiful.
house. Anyone who didn't get a chance to visit, if you still want to, just reach out. We'll just make a date and you can come over.
That's great. Thank you so much. Okay, and then let's go ahead and take the rest of the batch here. So
Chair
let's see
McCall,
this.
can I ask a question?
Sure.
So this came up at the last meeting. I'd just like some clarification either from you or from the Deputy City Attorney. So the public comment that occurs after we identify what we'll be voting on in the consent agenda, what I'm a little bit confused about is if there are comments in opposition, does that mean that it comes off the consent agenda?
That's right, it does.
Okay. I wanted to verify that. All right. Okay. So, because I always assumed that if it was on consent, it meant there were no comments, and then we're saying, okay, got it.
And Mr. Pittman, to further, that's part of the reason that public comment is required on the consent
Got it.
agenda or on a continuance, to make sure that the public is heard,
Yep.
and any concerns they may have. That's the whole reason we remind about consent and public comment.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Just to clarify, staff places these items on the consent agenda because both parties are in agreement, staff and the applicant. So if there is something that the public wants to say to pull the item in opposition, then public comment is their chance to do so.
Thank you.
Okay, that's great. We still have on the consent agenda item 2, item 3, and item 5. Is that correct? So, I mean, I guess what's the proper way to do this? Do we pull, or do we have, I guess we'll do public comments now, or we'll open it up for public comments on any one of these items. So again, it's the Fred Helbrun House, it is the John H. Lovett Spec House #1, or it's the Prospect Center building that we're looking at right now. So is there
Or could I just make a motion, we're still getting used to this consent agenda approach to the public, just so you know, it's kind of new for us. Or could I just make a motion to put items 2, 3, and 5 on the consent agenda? Then somebody could second it, and then we could have public comment. Does that work as well or not?
That's fine, as long as the public is given the opportunity to speak prior to the actual vote. I believe that would satisfy the public comment requirement of the Brown Act.
So then I will do that. I will place on the consent agenda items 2, 3, and 5.
Okay, thank you. Do we have a second on that?
I'll second.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Winter.
And should we clarify the public comment is really not like, let's comment on this. It's let's pull it off the consent agenda and then we'll talk about it in the after the presentation, right? I mean, we're not.
Public comment is open to anything that the public would like to say on any of those 3 items or any of the items on the consent agenda.
Okay, so we might just want to say, hey, are you trying to get us to pull it off it or not? You know, that's kind of what we ask the board members when the board member has a comment when we go on the.
Well, I mean, that's a really good point, because then we could just hear the item to pull it off consent. That kind of makes more sense to me. So I'm
not trying to tell the public what to do. I'm just saying maybe there might be some clarification of, you know, what would happen if you're
in compliance with the Brown Act. When public comment is open, the public should be able to comment however they would like on those items.
Okay, so I'm going to open it for public comment on those 3 items. So I give the public a minute here to raise your hand if you're interested in speaking on one of the 3 items. And again, as a reminder, it's the Fred Hilbrand House. It is the John H. Lovett Spec House number 1, and it's the Prospect Center building. Okay, I am seeing none. So we have I'm going to close public testimony then at this point, and we have a motion and a second. Is there any further board member discussion, comments, or clarification that needs to happen right now from the board or for the board? Okay, seeing none, then I will call the vote, starting with Board Member Hutter.
Aye.
Board Member Coyle.
Aye.
Board Member Bowen.
Aye.
Board Member Corleone.
Aye.
Board Member Pittman.
Aye.
Board Member Stankowski.
Aye.
Board Member Winter.
Aye.
That's a yes. So that holds unanimous. So thank you. Do we have anybody that that is representing one of these 3 properties that would like to take a moment and just say a word on behalf of their new ruling and designation here by the HRB?
Mr. Chair, I would like to make a comment, please.
Okay, yes, Mr. Thorpe, please go ahead.
Yes, I'm the owner of the Fred and Charlotte Hebron House, and I would just like to take this opportunity to thank the board for their time and for their consideration, and also act as a good steward to maintain the architectural significance of this building, and look forward to maintaining it in good standing. Again, thank you very much for your time.
Great, thank you. Any others?
Yes, my name is Alan Viterbi. I'm the president of the Muse Owners Association. We're the owners of the Prospect Center building. And on behalf of our members, I just wanted to thank the chair, the board, and the staff. We as well would like to be very good stewards well into the future of maintaining this important piece of the architectural history of La Jolla and San Diego. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. And we had one more. Is there anybody representing our last?
Chair McCullough, we have Sari Johnson with her hand raised.
Yes, please go right ahead.
But this is surprisingly not Sari Johnson. This is Paul Johnson. She is a little under the weather today, but the owners, Kathy Romero and Mike Mesa, are extremely elated with this designation on a great little bungalow, and they will be a really good steward of this historic property. Thank you very much for what you do.
Okay, great, thank you. And I'm not really sure how to handle this. I know we need to now go through the approval of the
Chair
agenda.
McCullough, we also have Ashley Losco represent from Urbana.
Okay, please, I'm sorry.
Hi, yeah, sorry. Just want to add one last thank you. I'm Ashley Losco from Urbana, and yeah, we want to thank you for the designation. We thoroughly enjoyed working on this project and are really excited for our homeowners there. So thank you. And for the consent agenda. That's been the last couple of meetings, so we appreciate the quickness.
Thank you, Ashley. Nice work. So, okay, so we do need to approve the agenda, and I guess the way we yes.
Chair McCullough, I believe approval of the consent agenda means that we've approved everything else on the agenda, unless you want to change the order, but we only have, so it's your, if you would like to discuss the order. It probably should have been voted on though with the consent agenda at the same
Yeah,
time.
I know. I just realized that. So this is a little weird the way we're doing this, but so I think the only thing that's been pulled off is 4. So we probably need to place that along with, you know, the others that were not on the agenda, if I understand correct. And do we need to probably need to take this as a separate vote then, I would imagine. So let's see here. We have items. The items left to here are 4, 7, and 8. Is that correct?
They're items 4 and 7, and then item 8 is actually an informational item.
Okay, but does that need to, we need that as part of the order on the agenda, don't we?
Mhm.
Okay, so I'm going to motion that we take it in order here, that we take it starting with item 4, 7, and then 8 in that order. Can I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Bowen. And any discussion?
Am I, Chair McCullough, am I allowed to vote on this? So I mean, I'm recusing from 4, but I assume I can vote on the order.
I don't see why not, but you know, I guess the question would be though, and just thinking about this a little bit more, maybe we should take 4 at the end. That way, you know, you don't have to stick around. I mean, I don't know.
For me.
Okay.
Also, Chair McCullough, I just want to remind you that Ms. Coyle also has to recuse on item 4, I believe. Yes, and she will also need to leave early, so that, you know, it's up to you guys.
So that makes perfect sense. Okay, so
Can I ask a question? Doesn't that pull us out of a quorum for that item?
Oh.
It's, that item is a recommendation. So as long as
Oh,
you
that's
have,
right,
you'll
that's
have
right.
6 people, you don't need, you would, yeah, you'll be fine.
Okay.
Okay, well, so I'm going to amend my motion that we take it in the order of 7, 8, and then 4 at the end. Are you okay with that, Mr. Bowen, as a second?
Yes, I'll second that.
Okay. Any further discussion? Thanks for pointing that out, by the way. That'll make it easier for some people here. So starting with Mr. Hutter.
Aye.
Ms. Coyle,
Aye.
Mr. Bowen,
Aye.
Dr. Corleone,
Aye.
Mr. Pittman,
Aye.
Ms. Donkowski,
Aye.
Mr. Winter,
Aye.
and that's yes for me, so that's unanimous. Okay, so there we have it. We're gonna move on then here, and we will take a break, I think, but why don't we try to get through one of these items at least. We'll start here on, as we mentioned, item 7. So let me just kind of move down my list here to item 7.
Before we start this item, Chair McCullough, can we ensure that those who weren't present at last month's meeting were able to listen to the audio on this item?
Okay, yes, because
sorry, the
this
May
was
meeting. I
continued from May
apologize.
27th. So who were the ones that were not present, and were they able to listen to the audio is the question.
I believe it was Dr. Corleone.
Okay.
I actually think that might be it because it was also Ms. Harleman.
I am sorry, I forgot to listen to the audio on this.
Okay, so maybe we have Dr. Corleone recuse on this item. Does that make sense?
To me, it does.
Chair McCullough, were you at that hearing? Please remind me. The Del Mar Mesa one, or was that the one that Mr. Hutter stepped in for you?
Boy, all everything's kind of blending together here. I believe I was. Mr. Hutter, maybe you could verify that. Do you remember,
I
was
gonna
that 10 months ago?
I have a recollection of chairing that meeting, but we can
Well,
refer to them.
Then there you have it. And I was not able to listen to I did not listen to the audio. So I guess I'll recuse too. But the question is, do we have a quorum on this item then?
Not anymore.
I think we do, don't we? We're good?
Give me
No?
1 second.
See, that takes, yeah, because we have 2 missing
We
people.
have 6, 7.
So we do, we're good?
Yes, we have 7 who are able to vote, and that we will need 6 to designate.
Okay, so
We have
Mr.
2
Hutter,
recusals though.
Who?
7 minus 2 is 5.
7?
Yeah, good point. Okay.
Ooh, 8?
We have 8? I thought we had 7, but maybe I'm crazy.
We have Todd, Cindy, Tim, Andy, Matt, David, Courtney, and Diane. David and Courtney are out, so that gives us 1,
No.
2, 3, 4, 5.
No. David and Diana. David and Diana.
Just for clarity's sake, Mr. Hutter, are you here to, and I'm able to vote on this item?
Yes.
Ms. Coyle, you are here and able to vote on this item.
Correct.
Mr. Bowen, you are here and able to vote on this item.
Yes.
Dr. Corleone, you are unable to vote on this item.
Yes.
Ms. Harleman's not here. Mr. Pittman,
Yes.
you are here and able to vote. Dr. Woods is the one. Ms. Stankowski, you can hear and able to vote.
Correct.
And Mr. Winter, you are here and able to vote.
Yes.
Okay, and Dr. Woods was the one I was missing. Sorry. So we have 6 and we will need 6 to designate.
Okay, so Mr. Hutter, I'm gonna have you take over on this one.
Thanks, Dave. Appreciate it.
No problem. Anything for you, my friend.
Thank you everyone for bearing with us on that.
All right, so we are picking up with item 7, the William and Bertha Neiman homestead located at 5175 Delmar Mesa Road. This is continued from May 27th, 2021. And I believe we are going to have a staff report from, give me just a moment, flip to that page. We're gonna have a staff report from Suzanne Seeger.
Yes. So I'm going to give a staff report that's just a brief update. It's not going to cover what was covered at the previous meeting, but what was included in the new revised report. The property located at 5175 Delmar Mesa Road was previously brought before the Historical Resources Board at the May 2021 hearing. At the hearing, the board voted to send the item back to the applicant in order to revise the research report. The previous motion requested more information, including a 2020 archaeological report, analysis of the property's 1978 residents, more context for significance under criterion B, a complete 2008 DPR form, and analysis from any available context statements or community plans. As a reminder, staff is recommending designation under HRB criteria A and B. The new information provided in the revised historic report did not impact staff's recommendation. The subject resource is located on an 8-acre site on the Delmar Mesa, which contains a number of structures, including the historic residence constructed between 1892 and 1916, a wooden barn constructed in 1953, a shed constructed in 1959, a 1978 residence, a pool, a 2010 barn, and riding rings and corrals from the 1980s and 1990s. The revised report prepared by the applicant included cultural resources assessment reports from 2021 and 2008, as well as a complete 2008 DPR form from a previous project. The new information provided in these reports was not significant enough for staff to change their recommendation. The revised report included additional information about the 1978 residence, which concluded that the structure was a Lindell Cedar Homes kit home. While the residence displays many of the character-defining features of the contemporary style, such as a strong roof form and wide overhanging eaves, large windows, triangular forms, and vertical wood siding, it does not rise to the level of significance to be individually eligible under HRB criterion C. Additionally, the residence does not relate to the Neiman's occupancy of the property. Therefore, staff continues to exclude the 1978 residents from the designation. The applicant provided additional context for William Neiman's significance under criterion B, including more information about the roles of justice and school superintendent, as well as more information about immigrants in the region during the period of significance. The Neiman family is significant as one of the first families to settle the region, and William Neiman's leadership positions indicate the influence that the family had over the area. Therefore, staff does not find that the applicant has provided significant information to modify the staff recommendation and continues to recommend designation under HRB criterion B. The applicant provided additional context regarding extant early agricultural sites in the Del Mar Mesa region taken from the Del Mar Mesa specific plan. The plan names some of the early families in the region and goes on to state that the locations of most of the dwellings associated with these families has not been determined. The only other known extant early residence in the Carmel Valley region is the Mount Carmel Ranch, HRB number 391, constructed in 1905 and associated with the Stevens family. Cultural reports also include the Netchell homestead, which within a half mile of the subject property. However, no intact structures were reported. This information indicates that the subject property is a rare agricultural resource on the Del Mar Mesa and the oldest extant homestead in the region. Therefore, staff continues to recommend designation under HRB criterion A as a special element of the Del Mar Mesa's historical development. The new information provided does not alter staff's designation, and we continue to recommend designation of the resource under HRB criteria A and B with a period of significance of 1892 to 1950. This concludes staff's report. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Seeger. Do we have any public comment on this matter? I see a hand raised from Jennifer Stropes. So I'm going to go there to start. Jennifer, please proceed.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't know if I should speak or if you would tell me that I was supposed to do my presentation now. I have
Do you have a presentation?
Yes.
All right, then let's do that.
Okay.
How much time do you need?
Oh, about the same as last time. I don't remember exactly how much that was though.
Okay. Do you think you can do it in under 10 minutes?
Yes.
All right, great. Please, if Suzanne can give you hosting ability, if you're going to share, there you go.
Whoops, sorry, let's go to the beginning. Okay. So this is the continuance of the 5175 Del Mar Mesa Road property that was heard on May 2021. This is in response to the motion by Board Member Coyle to return the report to include additional information. This PowerPoint is basically just a visual for what was provided in the report. So to include the 2020 archaeological report referenced in the technical report, the phase 1 and 2 cultural resource assessment for what they call the K8 project, which was completed for the property in 2021, has been provided in the revised report. More information regarding the 1978 residents, including the architect, was provided. A notice of cessation was filed with the County of San Diego in 1979 that indicates that the 5075 Shaw Valley Road residence was a Lindell Cedar Homes kit that was originally intended to be constructed by Robert L. McIntosh of R.L. McIntosh Construction. However, no information could be located regarding McIntosh or his company. The current Lindell Cedar Homes style that most resembles the 5075 Shaw Valley Road residence is called the Newport. Here's a picture of the Newport up here, and here's a picture of the residence. The assessor's building record for the residence indicated that construction was not completed on the home until 1981. The notes state that the house just started, horse barn half finished, lien date 1979. That was taken in 1979. And then another note was added in 1981 that said that they verified that the dwelling was completed in 1981. For more context for significance under criterion B, including more information about the roles of justice, William Neiman was a farmer who served as a justice of the peace from 1907 to 1925 and as a school superintendent for the Soledad School District in 1961. According to Encyclopedia Britannica, a justice of the peace is a local magistrate empowered chiefly to administer criminal or civil justice in minor cases. A justice of the peace may, in some jurisdictions, also administer oaths and perform marriages. Prior to 1974, justices were staffed by lay judges, and they did not require any law experience. After the court case Gordon versus the Justice Court in 1974, the Supreme Court of California determined that a justice of the peace, was in violation of due process since it allowed a non-lawyer to preside over a criminal trial. So no information could be located on specific cases that Neiman presided over, and as such, no significance could be derived from his position as a lay judge. The role of superintendent, since the turn of the 20th century, the primary focus of district superintendents was implementing a minimum mandated state curriculum and supervising teachers. In the late 1800s, the role was primarily a teacher scholar role. But then during the 1900s to the 1930s, they began to serve more as organizational managers. By the time Neiman served as a district superintendent, the position was most focused on management of the district under a corporate management model. However, Neiman only served as superintendent for 1 year and no known significant accomplishments were made by him during that time. Therefore, Neiman is not considered significant individual based upon his occupation as a superintendent. So the motion also requested more information about immigrants in the region during the time period, given the population levels and the size of the city. In the 1800s, immigrants comprised about 34% of the California population, and in the 1890s, 30%. In 1900, approximately 30% of the California population and 46% of adults in the Del Mar Township were immigrants. According to the 1900 census, the Del Mar Township had a population of 227 that year. Of that population, 41% were children, mostly born in the United States. There were a few born in Canada, Mexico, Switzerland, Indian Territory, and then one that was, no one knew where they were born. Of the adults, 55% were born in the United States, 19% in Germany, 13 in Mexico, 9 in Switzerland, 6 in Ireland, 3 in Canada.
Hey, Pamela, it's Marcus Thorpe. Can you chat?
Hang on 1 second.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, hang on.
Yep.
Okay, I'm just getting out of the way so Ron can continue.
Ms. Strubs, can you proceed?
Yeah, sorry, I didn't know if he was going to continue
That's okay.
speaking.
Thank you.
So the motion also requested to include the missing pages from the 2008 DPR form. We've resubmitted that entire form, as well as the 2009 Cultural Resource Records Search and Site Visit report that was conducted for the property previously by Michael Brandman Associates. And the motion also requested to provide available analysis from context statements for community plans that would aid in understanding the rarity of agricultural sites. So very little has been written on the early historic development of the Del Mar Mesa area as far as context statements and specific plans, but the Del Mar Mesa specific plan does include these 3 paragraphs about historic sites within the Del Mar Mesa. It notes that although farmsteads were widely spaced throughout the area, the early settlers shared community interests based on social and economic endeavors. Carmel Valley provided the main avenue for travel
and transportation to Del Mar, which was the nearest community. With completion of a railway passing through Del Mar in the early 1880s, the local farmers were provided with the means of transporting goods to a broader market. It also notes that there were several families in the area that are long-term residents. They were associated with farming activities in the Shaw Valley and on the Del Mar Mesa. These include the Nechtold, the Mecklenseck, and the Neiman families. It notes that the Neimans built their home on Del Mar Mesa in 1895. They were among the first in the area to plant orchards on their farm, said. A 1928 aerial photograph depicts the orchards to the north and northwest of a complex of buildings. The Neiman home remains intact as a component of the Carmel Valley Ranch. So the statement is a little bit problematic because it states that the Neiman home remains intact as a component of the Carmel Valley Ranch. This is misleading, however, as both the 2008 report and the current study found that the building no longer retains integrity of design, setting, or feeling. The current study and staff also agree that the building does not retain integrity of design, materials, or workmanship. So intact is defined as not damaged or impaired in any way, basically complete. The building would not have suffered integrity loss if it were intact. In addition, that statement is also a little confusing because the property was not named Carmel Valley Ranch until after it became a horse ranch in the 1970s. So that name is not associated with the Neimans. So none of the information requested by the HRB has changed the evaluation of the building's loss of integrity. Although the building and additions are in the same location, the loss of design, materials, workmanship, setting, feeling, and association render the building nearly unrecognizable from how it appeared between 1892 and 1950. So, and these are the same photographs that were shown in the last PowerPoint, so I'll be quick with these, but here's 1939 versus 2010, how the property appeared. Here's the home right after the roof was lifted. And here's the home just showing the original complex and then with the line where the original roof was. This is also just the line showing where the original roof line was on the home. And here's the 2010 barn and the riding rings that are surrounding the home. This is the 1953 barn. Modern horse stalls. So again, the most important aspects of integrity under criterion A and B are location, setting, feeling, and association. Of these aspects of integrity, the building only retains integrity of location. So basically this is explained. This is from the last PowerPoint, but due to all of the modifications that have happened to the property, it no longer retains integrity of setting. It also no longer retains integrity of feeling, as setting is a major part of feeling. And integrity of association requires the physical presence of features that convey that property's historic character. So the original building is not eligible under any HRB criteria and has been substantially modified and altered to the extent that it no longer retains original integrity and no longer conveys its original form as the home and adjoining land used by the Neiman family to farm from 1892 to 1950. We therefore respectfully request that the HRB not designate the property today.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Stropes. Anyone else from the public that wishes to comment on this item? Ms. Seeger, do we have any other speaker slips? Suzanne, if you're saying something, I can't hear you. I'm sorry.
Sorry. Sorry, we don't have any speaker slips on the item, but Ms. Hayes and Ms. Sharon Gale both have their hands raised.
All right. We'll go to Ms. Hayes.
Thank you, Chair Hutter and Board. Can everyone hear me all right?
Yes.
That is yes. Okay, thank you. Soho continues to concur with the staff report and finds the rare and early William Bertha Neiman homestead significant under criteria A and B, with a period of significance beginning in 1892 through 1950. We additionally find it significant under criterion C as a rare and intact remaining building type from an early agricultural period in San Diego County history, and as a valuable example of craftsmanship. Associated with one of the pioneering families of Carmel Valley, this continues to be one of the first homesteads for the region, making it a highly significant and special historical element under A for all of San Diego. The unique and visible evolution of this farmhouse illustrates the early history, building typology, and architecture of the region. With a good level of remaining integrity, this is quite a rare resource. Also significant under B, this early Carmel Valley homestead is where the Neiman's family raised their family and cultivated land, contributing to the cultural landscape, sense of place, and character of the larger region we still see today. Soho still finds this resource significant under criterion C as an excellent and rare example of a late 19th century farmhouse whose method of construction demonstrates a rare craftsmanship, of single wall construction. This is not very common in San Diego and increasingly rare. Beginning in 1892, the evolution of this resource is an important demonstration for how people lived during this period, expanding their homes and their property as time, resources, and people allowed. Further, the evolutionary changes in material and construction heightens the level of significance for this resource under C because it serves as a visible and rare surviving architectural timeline. Please designate this significant and rare resource today. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hayes. Ms. Gale? Sharon, are you there?
Unmute. Hello. I'd like to point out that your board members were not able to look inside the building when you visited because it wasn't safe. It's not, the building can't be considered structurally an intact structure when it's not structurally safe enough to be used for anything. You can't go inside, you can't study it. There is really no building left. The foundation's crumbling and you can't see it from a public right of way, which is also one of your requirements. There's nothing left to meet your requirements. You can't legally require that the property owner spend money replacing this building with a fake reproduction. You have to consider the building the way it is now. And the way it is now does not represent the period of significance because there is no intact building. And putting designation on it would just mean you'd end up with a dangerous public attractive nuisance, as they say, something that could attract homeless, could be set on fire, could even cause a death. You have to consider the building the way it is now. It doesn't meet your requirements. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gale. Anyone else from the public before we close public comment? All right, hearing none, we're gonna move on then to board member comment.
Mr. Hutter, just before we start that, I just wanted to draw attention to Ms. Strope's comment that Mr. Bruce Wygand is available for questions. That comment in the chat.
Okay. Mr. Wygand, is there anything you want to add before we move on to board member comment?
Well, I represent the owner of the property. I'm working with the owner for the entitlement of it. My history goes back to the 1880s when my great-grandfather came as a German immigrant to North County, and I don't have anything to add. I was just available for any questions that might help, but that would be strictly at the pleasure of the staff, or excuse me, the board, if I can help at all.
Okay. Thank you. All right. let's move on then to board member comment. I'll start right at the top of my list and we'll go on to board member Coyle.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to appreciate the additional items and information that came forward. I found it to be very helpful, and I appreciated how especially the community plan information supports the staff's recommendation. So that was very helpful to me. I'm still concerned about the potential archaeology on the property and hope that if a project comes forward at some point, that we do get to address that issue after qualified staff at the city has looked at the material. So I'm still supportive of staff's designation or staff's recommendation to designate. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Coyle. Next, we're going to go again straight down my list. Mr. Bowen.
I agree with board member Coyle's comment, and the particularly the community plan really highlights the rarity of this resource. So I remain in support of the staff recommendation.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Bowen. We're going to skip over Dr. Corleone, Ms. Harleman, and go to Mr. Pittman, please.
So I continue to struggle with this one. I struggled with it last month. I'm just going to outline some of my struggle in hopes that perhaps some of my fellow board members could assuage my concerns. And maybe also, I think I have a question for staff. Can staff remind me, if this was to be approved, what would be the character defining feature or historic fabric of the site? Would it be only the structure, or are we protecting the site and the structure?
Staff is recommending designation of just the homestead property, homestead structure, and exclusion of everything else. The integrity isn't there as a cultural landscape for the entire homestead, including the landscape and surrounding structures. Staff is just recommending the historic structure.
So, okay, so and this is kind of, I think, that the core of my concern. So we're just looking at the structure, and the structure, I have a tough time seeing the integrity in that structure. If I look at it as an 1882 structure, I see a lack of integrity based on the additions all the way up to 1916 and beyond. None of it on its own really conveys history to me terribly well. I think the consultant's point about integrity of location being extent is accurate. I don't really see the setting. I don't really see the feeling. I have a tough time with the association. So if we're talking about this as an important homestead agricultural site, but we're talking about just protecting a structure, that's where I'm getting hung up. So with that, I really would like to hear anything anybody else can add.
Thank you, Mr. Pittman. Next, we're going to go on to Ms. Stankowski.
I too have been, pardon me, a little bit torn on this property just because of all the changes. I mean, if you look at it all together, it's very compelling, but we can't look at it all together. All we can look at is the building. And it seems like there have been so very many changes to it that I'm just torn. I feel like as a whole, this is something really compelling. Just this building isn't talking to me like that it's authentic, if that makes any sense. But I'd like to hear from the rest of the board.
Okay. I believe the last person on my list is Mr. Winter. So we're going to go to Matt.
No,
if you're talking, Matt, we cannot hear you.
Yeah.
What now?
Better now.
All right, yeah. So I'm the rest of the board, I guess. I was inclined to support staff's recommendation last time. I don't think I'm changing, although it is a hard one, and so I'm also not going to like try and convince anyone else to change their minds. But I do think the setting was important. I do think the history is important. I do think that the period was important, and then I thought the period of significance extended past some of the additions, didn't it? And then into the one that's being discussed in the staff recommendation, right? I mean, isn't it carrying all the pieces that are attached to the building?
Correct. The staff recommendation goes up to 1950, which would include all of the additions. And that was when the Niemans resided on the property.
That kind of creates the complex, yeah, and excluding the barn that's off to the side over there. I think I'm still in the same place I was last month.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I'll just say from my own perspective, I think this is a tough one. As Todd highlighted and the consultant highlighted, this was once a very large piece of property that has been kind of chipped away and modified over the years. It's continued to remain, a horse property and an active continuation of maybe some of the activity that was happening on the site, but it's clearly very different over time. Can I ask a question, Suzanne, about something that was in the latest staff report? It mentions the 2021 archaeological report or the cultural resource assessment. And there's a comment in your staff report that staff has not, or qualified environmental staff has not had a chance to review it yet. What does that mean in terms of our review? Is your indication that that's not a concern, but we were checking on that just in case? Or can you just provide some clarity on that? Because I know that was part of the request as part of the earlier motion.
Correct. At this time, the project before staff, that staff is considering, and the vehicle for bringing this property forward to the board does not include an impact to below ground, which would be archaeological resources. So the archaeological review will be done at a later date. Environmental staff is aware of this.
Okay, so at this stage, because we're only talking about the structure, we aren't concerned about the archaeological components. And as Courtney asked earlier, if there's a future project that involves excavation below grade, then there will be analysis at that point.
Correct. And then qualified staff will look at the archaeological report and assess if it needs to be forwarded to the Historical Resources Board for review.
Okay. And if something were to pop up there, then it would be brought back to us for a consideration of whether there's any archaeological tribal cultural resources below ground.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Do we have, I think we've gone around to the whole board. Do we have a motion? Or Ms. Stankowski, you want to be heard?
Question. I have a question for staff. Under CEQA, I mean, I assume that if they're going to do something below ground, CEQA would be kicked off. So a site can be considered significant without a vote from the Historical Resources Board. So it wouldn't necessarily come back to us if it's a below ground situation, correct?
That's correct. Ms. McPherson, do you want to address this?
Board Member Stankowski, yes, that is, something can be CEQA significant. However, should a project be brought forward, the review by qualified city staff archaeologists that we have on staff in the CEQA section would review any materials that were provided. We would probably require preparation of a report. And we would be, if the site merited designation as an archaeological site, we would bring that forward.
Okay.
The Historic Resources Board, but you are correct that without designation, there is also something in CEQA that refers to CEQA significant, and that could also be considered at that time.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other, Todd, please go ahead.
I'm stepping a little outside of my wheelhouse here, but I'm this is a puzzling conversation we're having here. So I was actually receptive at the last meeting to Board Member Coyle's request to look into the archaeology. And the answer that we just got is a little puzzling to me. So one of the things I'm having a tough time with is we're trying to save a structure, frankly, nearly an artifact, but we are not looking specifically at the site. That was my first question, right? So are we looking to protect the site? And the answer was no. So if there is archaeology on the site, why would we not make that determination before bringing it to the board? Because we could be looking at a very different resource under that circumstance. Am I confused, or is there anybody who can shed some light on this? Because it seems strange to come back in and say that the site's not important, we're not protecting it. And then after the fact, we go out and we take a look at the archaeology and say, well, the building's now gone, but the archaeology was pretty cool. It's too bad the building's gone because it could have actually, there could have been something that would tie those two things together. Again, I'm not an archaeologist. I'm outside of my wheelhouse here. I'm just surprised that we're doing this in this order.
First of all, I just want to clarify that the entire parcel is before the board for review. So if the board feels that the entire site has integrity, or that they can make that motion to designate the entire site. In general, the board has a history of considering archaeological and built resources at different times. Generally, it's because the archaeology is prehistoric in nature and not, and mind you, I am not an archaeologist. For this particular site, there may be historical archaeology. However, because there is no trigger to bring that archaeological element forward to the board for review, it is not currently in front of you today. Just like the vehicle in which properties are brought forward before the Historical Resources Board in regards to the built environment is if there's a project that's impacting that. So, if you're proposing demolition of a structure, with this current project, it's a preliminary review for a constraints analysis for potentially in the future doing something that might alter the structure. And that's why it is before you today. However, in terms of archaeology, there is nothing presented that will be, impacting anything below ground currently. So that if there is found that there is a significant archaeological site on the property and a proposed project will be impacting that, that is when staff brings that forward.
Okay. Ms. Stankowski?
Well, it's been my experience in a property such as this that you may find a historic dump site, which isn't going to tell you anything new. It's just going to be some broken bottles, broken plates, or whatever. However, if there was a prehistoric site that turned out to be quite significant, that's a whole different thing. You can have either or. So even if the property is destroyed and they find a prehistoric site, well, that could be made significant, and then you can't disturb it any further. But like you said, the house is already gone. But it seems in this case, you just can't have it both ways unless we're willing to designate. And I appreciate Mr. Winter reminding me about the dates of significance that do include some of the changes to the structure.
Okay. Do we have anyone? Ms. Coyle, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to say, given the rarity of the structure, we don't have a whole lot of these here. And given this bifurcation of what is under the ground, I prefer to have everything come before me at the same time. That's just how I was trained in my SQL brain and everything else. I guess that's not necessarily before us today, but I think that potential, also is a cautionary principle in favor of the designation as well in a practical sense, but I still am going to support the staff's recommendation, and I'm willing to make a motion to that as well.
All right, thank you. Is there a second for the motion?
I'll second.
Mr. Bowen, second. All right, any further comment or discussion, questions about the motion? Ms. Coyle?
Regardless of how this motion goes, here we are again on a very tight vote. We have what, 6 voting members with the recusals or the inability to have listened to the tape and our vacancy. You know, it really is a problem, I think, when we don't have a full complement of people. If this motion is not successful, I would hope that the landowners would still consider the options of preservation that are possible there. It's a large parcel. There's probably lots of different ways to do whatever project might be coming forward that's the subject of the constraints analysis. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Coyle. Mr. Bowen?
I would just like to point out also that this is a particular area of the city limits that I don't remember examining any potential resource before. We have so many properties that come before us in the, you know, the traditional downtown area. So this would be a kind of way to diversify the historical resource map. The other thing I want to point out is the incremental quality of the structure, the way it grew with the family, and then 1916, this larger structure was done. I think it really reflects a lot of the economic activity, you know, happening. I would say that, just in short, that it's a resource that's would be really sad to lose for future study as a regional as well as a civic resource. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bowen. Any other further comments on the motion? All right, then we will call the vote. We'll start with Ms. Coyle.
Aye.
Mr. Bowen?
Aye.
Mr. Pittman?
After much tug of war, I'm going to go with aye.
Ms. Stankowski?
Aye.
Mr. Winter?
Nope. Aye.
And I am a no on the motion. So the motion, I don't know, I think it actually, the motion carries 5-1, but it falls short of the required number of 6 to designate. So I don't think that we have anything further on this resource. Staff, anything to add? Should I invite Mr. McCullough back?
Yeah, I think that would be appropriate.
All right. Can I suggest that we take a 5-minute break before I turn the baton back to Dave? Is that okay with you, Chair McCullough?
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. So absolutely.
All right. Let's come back at
So
2:40.
2:40. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, welcome back, everybody. And thank you, Mr. Hutter, for sharing the last item. With that, we will move on to our next item. As long as we have everybody back on the call, let me just double check here real quick. Looks like we do. So we're going to move on to item 8. This is Mills Act training, and this is information item only. Is staff ready to go forward with item 8? I've got Ms. Haggerty as staff member that will be conducting this.
Done. Nicola, while Ms. Haggerty is getting ready, do you want to just take a quick roll call of the board members so we can have on the record that everyone is present?
Okay, yes, I'll do that. Starting with board member Hutter. Please unmute
Here,
yourself.
sorry about that.
Okay, thanks. Board member Coyle.
Here.
Board member Bowen.
Here.
Board member Corleone.
Here.
Board member Pittman.
Here.
Board member Stankowski.
Here.
And board member Winter.
Here.
Okay. Looks like we're all here. Ms. Haggerty, please go right ahead whenever you're ready.
Great. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right, awesome. Good afternoon, board members. This is Emma Haggerty, Senior Planner and Mills Act Coordinator with the Historical Resources section of the Development Services Department. Today, I'll be presenting an overview of the city's Mills Act program. The Mills Act was enacted in 1972 by former state senator and San Diegan James Mills and is recognized as the single most important economic development incentive program in California for the restoration and preservation of qualified historic buildings by private property owners. In 1995, San Diego City Council adopted the Mills Act, and in 2008, City Council approved reforms to the program, which included an annual $200,000 threshold, tailored agreements, and fees for monitoring and enforcement. The $200,000 threshold is the impact to the general fund and not the total savings amount in any given year. This year we had 64 applications and we were not even close to that threshold. Should staff reach the threshold, staff will need to request City Council exceed that set $200,000 amount. On average, the program provides homeowners an annual tax reduction between 20 to 70%. The actual savings of each agreement is calculated by the county assessor's office and is based off procedures and formulas contained in state law. Currently, San Diego's Mills Act program is the most active in the state. In order for a property to be eligible for the Mills Act, it must be historically designated on the city's register. Properties must be designated before December 31st of the previous year to be eligible to apply the following year. For example, properties that are designated during the 2021 HRB meetings may apply in 2022 for the Mills Act. Currently, the Mills Act application is available online at the highlighted website under the documents section. Applications can only be accepted by staff between January 1st and March 31st, and the applications must include a check as well as the 5 required attachments in order to be deemed complete. This is a copy of our current Mills Act agreement application. The top portion includes the city's Mills Act email address that the public may send their application to, as well as the mail-in address. The bottom portion includes a description of the 5 required attachments. Once the application is deemed complete and the agreement is prepared by city staff, homeowners will be expected to follow all the outlined requirements, such as maintaining visibility of the property from the public right-of-way, obtaining a historic designation plaque within 1 year of the effective date of the Mills Act agreement, and maintaining the property consistent with the U.S. Secretary of Interior standards. Mills Act agreements will also typically include a 10-year work plan for a combination of maintenance, rehabilitation, and restoration. The 10-year work plan could include restoration of character-defining features, window repair or replacement, siding or stucco repair or replacement, foundation repair, and roof repair. If a homeowner decides to sign the prepared Mills Act agreement, the initial term of the contract is for 10 years, and it automatically renews every year for 1 year, so the agreement is always 10 years out. The contract does not run out unless an owner requests otherwise. If a property owner is no longer interested in the Mills Act, they may request to stop the automatic renewals, entering into non-renewal. Non-renewal takes between 9 and 10 years to get out of and is not an overnight cancellation of the agreement. Once the automatic renewal of the Mills Act stops, the property taxes will increase over the next 9 or 10 years until there's no longer any savings and the Mills Act is removed from the property. Entering a property into non-renewal status does not remove the historic designation on the site. Once the property is out of that 10-year renewal period, the Mills Act may be requested for again. If a property is in year 6 of their 10-year non-renewal period, the owners must wait the remaining 4 years before they are eligible to reapply. Due to the amount of work the Mills Act requires, several different fees exist and include $471 for the Mills Act agreement application, which is due when the application is submitted between January to March, $234 for the monitoring fee, which is due initially when the Mills Act agreement is signed and then every 5 years thereafter, and $750 for the enforcement fee. This fee is only used when remedies of violations and as part of an enforcement action by the city. For Mills Act monitoring, properties are inspected every 5 years on a rotating basis. 200 properties are inspected each year, and prior to the inspection, a letter is sent out to the owner requesting the $234 monitoring fee. Once the inspection is complete, a follow-up letter is sent to the property owner informing them that the site has been inspected by city staff. This inspection is usually done from the public right-of-way unless there are interior elements included in the designation. If that's the case, staff will directly contact the owner to schedule an interior site visit. During inspections, staff is looking to see that the property is visible from the public right-of-way and the historical designation plaque is present, that the property is being maintained consistent with the U.S. Secretary of Interior standards and in good condition, that there have been no changes to the property without review and approval of the historical resources staff, and that the property owner is completing the scope of work items outlined in their Mills Act agreement on time and with prior approval. Here is an example of a property that was historically designated with multiple modifications on the primary elevation, which negatively impacted the resource. When the owner applied for the Mills Act, city staff required them to restore the balcony railings, trellis, provided historic documentation as part of their 10-year work program, resulting in the appropriate restoration of the resource. This concludes staff's presentation. Should you have any additional questions or comments, please let me know. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And I don't know, is there any comments or any feedback from?
Can I make a request? Emma, would it, or staff, would it be possible to just send around those slides to the board so that we'll have them? Thank you.
Okay, great. So thank you very much for that. We'll move on now to item 4, and I guess there's a couple of you that can log off now at this point. Thank you for your time.
Who wanted to raise my hand?
Mr. Chair, so there's no discussion, anything about the item, the informational item we just heard? Is that?
It's just informational items. That's the reason why I asked if you guys had any questions or comments or wanted any discussion. I didn't see anything, so maybe I missed your hand, Ms. Coyle.
Oh, yeah. Could Emma put back the slide on the things that typically are part of contracts?
Yeah, sure.
Thanks. It was a very interesting report too. Thank you. I learned some stuff.
Is this the slide, Courtney?
I'm not seeing it yet, but
you're not, Emma, you're not sharing.
Oh, that's fine. Sorry, everyone.
Oh.
This one?
Yeah, so I note that it says window repair replacement and siding and stucco repair replacement. So there are times when properties come before the board for designation, and some of the items that may disqualify it at times, right, relate to window repair and replacement and siding and stucco repair and replacement. So does that mean that as a board, I mean, I know we're supposed to consider the condition of the property as it's before us at that time, but given that these are things that could be part of the work plan, how do we harmonize that?
Yeah, so when a property comes forward for designation, staff is evaluating it at its current condition, and we can't consider that the homeowner will want to apply for the Mills Act in the future, or that they even will. So that's why when we are evaluating resources with, front facade modifications, window alterations, we're taking it at that time, and we really can't condition, the idea that they're going to apply for the Mills Act.
I guess so, but I can see a situation where it's come down to stucco, and but for the stucco, maybe it would have been designated. And then I see this where it says that this is something that could be fixed. So I'm still trying to harmonize that in my mind. So I'll continue to think about it, but this was very helpful. Thank you, Emma.
Chair McCullough, Ms. Stiegler would like to speak as well.
Yes, Ms. Stiegler, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. So just for a little more background, I think we forget the history of where we came from as a board. When I served on the board from 92 to 2000, starting when I was on the board in 92, we regularly got 4 or 5 designations a year. That was it. And it was myself, Doug Austin, and Carol Eisenman who set up an incentives subcommittee. And it was Von Marie May who pointed us in the direction of the Mills Act. And we researched it, we put it together, and we brought it before City Council to get it enacted. And at the time it was enacted without all of these time constraints or monetary constraints or any part of that. And I really appreciate that Emma pointed out that it is well under $200,000 a year that the Mills Act is impacting the city budget by, because a number of people are under the misconception that it's a lot higher. And a lot of that comes from, I believe, a faulty UT article that was based on a, a grand jury. A grand jury got a bee in their bonnet to take a look at what the Mills Act was costing the city of San Diego. And I still remember the rainy January Sunday morning in 48-point type, the UT announcing that the Mills Act was costing the city of San Diego, I want to say $38 million a year. I've never gotten the retraction from the UT that we deserved. At the time, it was figured out that it was more like 800,000 all total, everybody in. And so I really, really appreciate that this information is being handed out, that people understand, and that more discussion needs to be had to educate the public on the benefits. And there's also the, I think it's the Noland report, where he's the economist that identified that there's a halo effect around every historic property that actually raises the property's value, and in turn brings in more property taxes, actually, than if the historic building wasn't there. So thank you so much for letting me bring back that little bit of history.
Okay, yeah, that was all very good information to know about. So thank you. Any further questions?
Ms. Sharon Gale also has her hand raised.
Okay, Ms. Gale.
Hello. There's some confusion here. If you own property in the city, you know that you get a pie chart from the county assessor showing where your money goes. It goes not just to the city, but to the county, to the library, to the school district. So if you have a Mills Act, a contract, that's where the money doesn't go. It doesn't go, certain amount doesn't go to the city, but it also doesn't go to the county, the school district. And we have talked about this. And that's where the pie chart, that's the secret. And as for the research that was so far supposed halo effect, you've seen the chart where the properties are. You know they're properties that voluntarily got designation, got the Mills Act, are grouped together in the more expensive areas. So of course the properties around them are more expensive. You can't say that there is a halo effect, because the research was done wrong.
Okay, thank you. Any further comments on this? All right, so let's go ahead and then move on to our next item, and that is item 4. It's the Institute of Geophysics and Planetary Physics, IGPP Monk Laboratory, and giving the staff report is Ms. Koleski. So as soon as you're ready, please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair McAuliffe. Good afternoon, board. My name is Leah Koleski. I'm one of the junior planners in the Historical Resources section. This item is being brought before, oh, excuse me, I'll wait until my PowerPoint's up.
Thank you, everyone. The training that Ms. Haggerty just gave was part of our requirements for as a CLG. As you know, we have to report every year and to the SHPO, and they want to see that we're providing training for our board. So thank you, Ms. Haggerty, for fulfilling that need.
Yes. All right.
Okay, this item is being brought before the Historical Resources Board for review prior to the State Historical Resources Commission's action on the nomination of the Institute of Geophysics and Planetary Physics Monk Laboratory to the National Register of Historic Places. A Historical Resources research report concludes that the property is significant under National Register criteria A, B, C, and G, and staff concurs. The property is located on the west side of Biological Grade within the Scripps Institute of Oceanography campus in the La Jolla community. The property includes one contributing building, the Monk Laboratory designed by San Diego master architect Lloyd Ryoko, one contributing site, the landscape architecture designed by Wimmer and Yamada, and one contributing structure, the spring stirring sculpture by Donald Horde. The laboratory is situated on a sloped lot overlooking the Pacific Ocean, which was specifically selected for its remote location. The building is 2 stories over a full basement and contains offices, conference rooms, and laboratory space. The wood frame building sits on a concrete foundation and features a cross-axial plan designed to respond to the unique coastal topography of the site. The building consists of 2 long rectangular wings arranged perpendicularly, with the upper level oriented east to west and jutting out toward the ocean. The building is clad in vertical redwood shiplap siding and is covered by a flat roof with projecting eaves, exposed redwood beams, and overhead shade trellises. The upper wing features cantilevered catwalks on its south, west, and portions of the north facades. Fenestration includes operable and fixed wood windows and sliding glass doors. The entrance to the building is located along Biological Grade and is accessed by a pair of glazed doors topped by louvered transoms located on the east facade of the upper wing. The subject resource embodies several distinctive characteristics of the post and beam substyle of the modern architectural style, including floor-to-ceiling glass, direct expression of the structural system, a flat roof with wide overhanging eaves, horizontal massing, minimal use of solid load-bearing walls, repetitive facade geometry, and a strong interior-exterior connection, evident through the extensive use of sliding glass doors and the property's designed outdoor spaces, including a patio originally used for outdoor lectures and gatherings. The National Register nomination report finds the property to be eligible under criterion A at the local level of significance in the areas of science and education for its association with the institutional development of both the Scripps Institute of Oceanography and the University of California, San Diego, as well as being the site of numerous scientific and academic advancements in the field of oceanography and geophysical science since its construction in 1963. Therefore, staff supports a recommendation for designation under National Register criterion A. The National Register nomination report finds the property to be eligible under criterion B at the local level of significance for its association with Dr. Walter H. Munk. Known as Einstein of the Oceans, Dr. Munk was a groundbreaking scientist whose work throughout the 20th and 21st centuries transformed the field of oceanography and geophysics. The IGPP Munk Laboratory is directly associated with Dr. Munk's prolific career, specifically during the time he served as IGPP director from 1962 to 1982. Dr. Munk joined the SIO faculty after completing his doctoral studies there in 1947. He remained at SIO for his entire career. Following his retirement as director in 1982, Dr. Munk continued to work on site until 2000. Therefore, staff supports a recommendation for designation under National Register criterion B. The National Register nomination report finds the property to be eligible under criterion C at the local level of significance in the areas of architecture, landscape architecture, and art. The IGPP Munk Laboratory was built in the post and beam style and embodies several distinctive characteristics of the style. The building was designed in close collaboration between master architect Lloyd Ryoko and the Munks. The subject resource continues to convey the historic significance of the post and beam style by embodying the historic characteristics associated with the style. Therefore, staff supports a recommendation for designation under National Register criterion C for architecture. Located to the north and south of the building, the property features a significant landscape designed by the noted landscape architectural firm of Wimmer and Yamada. The north landscape evokes a Japanese-style garden, while the south landscape is far less formal and more representative of native ecology. The landscape design was completed before the architectural design. The subject resource continues to convey the historic significance of the original landscape designs. Therefore, staff supports a recommendation for designation under National Register criterion C for landscape architecture. Included in the original landscape plans was the 1948 diorite sculpture, Spring Stirring, by internationally known artist Donald Hoard. The sculpture was gifted to SIO by benefactors Cecil and Ida Green at the request of Judith Munk, who herself was an accomplished sculptor who had studied under Hoard. The black diorite sculpture was mounted in a small basin carved into a stone plinth before being installed in the IGPP's northern landscape in 1964. The sculpture remains at the subject resource and continues to convey its historic significance in relation to the architecture and landscape of the subject property. Therefore, staff supports a recommendation for designation under National Register criterion C for art. Please note, due to staff error, the staff report does not include an evaluation of criteria G. However, the National Register nomination report finds the property to be eligible under criterion G for achieving significance within the past 50 years due to its exceptional importance. As previously discussed, the property is the site of numerous scientific and academic advancements in the field of oceanography and geophysical science, is associated with the historically significant individual, Dr. Walter H. Munk, and features significant architecture, landscape architecture, and art. The significance is established through scholarly research and evaluation, which considers the historical context of the property. Therefore, the resource meets the requirements of the criteria consideration G and is eligible for listing on the National Register of Historic Places. This concludes staff's report. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. I'll go ahead and open it to public testimony, and I do have a couple of speaker slips here. I'll start with that in support of the item, and that's, let's see, from Miss Magno. Is she on the call? Do you?
I am here on the call. Thank you very much.
Yes.
My name is Eileen Magna. I'm here along with Carmen Pauley of our Office of Heritage Architecture and Planning. We're both the co-authors of the nomination, and we would like to take this opportunity to thank you in advance for your support and recommendation of the IGPP Monk Lab for listing on the National Register. This means a great deal to us moving forward, as we are going to meet with the state at the end of this month for their consideration as well. And if needed, Ms. Polly is also on the line with a formal presentation if needed. Thank you very much.
Okay, I'm sorry, did you say with a formal presentation?
If needed.
Oh, if needed, okay.
Yes.
All right, I just have one other speaker slip from Ms. Monk, if she is on the call. Ms. Monk?
You should be able to talk now, Ms. Monk.
Thank you. Good afternoon, board and staff. My name is Mary Monk. I'm the widow of Dr. Walter Monk. I'm here today to discuss the accuracy of item 4, the IGPP nomination. While IGPP certainly should be listed on the National Register, I believe that 4 aspects of the nomination would benefit from additional thought, and respectfully request that the HRB send its support for the nomination with a recommendation that these 4 areas be addressed prior to the nomination being sent to the keeper. Accuracy and completeness are important, as future scholars will look to the IGPP nomination as an authoritative source. First, does the IGPP nomination properly recognize the role of Judith Monk in its siting, development, and design, as well as her other contributions to UCSD campus design? At the April 30th State Historic Resource Commission hearing for SESH, Walter and Judith's home, the commissioners recognized that there is an opportunity to tell 2 largely unwritten stories through Judith Monk. One, of females in the field of architecture and design, and secondly, the role of San Diego and California's modernism movement. The IGPP nomination also helps to propel these important stories. Most tellingly, the lab at IGPP is named after both Walter and Judith. Second, Walter was known as the Einstein of the ocean and the world's greatest oceanographer. There's no doubt that over his lifetime, his achievements are not just of local, but national and even international significance. Scripps and UCSD should be encouraged to perform any further research or comparative studies that may be necessary to place Walter at his correct level of criteria B significance, which is so clearly national. Third, the interiors of IGPP were thoughtfully conceived and designed specifically for the structure. This includes several pieces of original furniture, custom designed by Roaco. Much of the built-in elements of the original design, such as wooden bookcases, cabinetry, conference tables, and chalkboards remain intact, as well as sliding wall panels and hand-selected tablecloths. These interior elements are an integral part of the overall design, feeling, and association of IGPP, and also should be considered for designation. Finally, regarding Walter's office spaces, is there sufficient analysis in the IGPP nomination to conclude that IGPP is the best representation of Walter's productive life? No meaningful comparative analysis was offered among his offices at IGPP, his other offices on the Scripps campus, or his own home office at SESH, which he used for collaborative writing and drafting of his research papers, which number over 275 published works. The length of his career, the breadth of his work, and the way in which SESH was used as both a personal think tank and as a salon further contribute to his significance. In sum, to truly honor Walter and Judith, each of the 4 comment areas should be addressed before the nomination is sent to the keeper. Thank you for the opportunity to speak, and I'm delighted that IGPP is being nominated for historic designation.
Okay, great, thank you. So is there any others? Those are only two speaker slips that I have. I'll kind of open it up here, maybe from the general public that would like to say a word for 3 minutes or less. Please raise your hand. Good minute here.
Ms. Polly, did you have any, you have your hand raised. I'm not sure if you want to speak or if you were just available for questions.
No, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Hi. My name is Carmen Polly. I'm with Heritage Architecture and Planning. As Eileen Magno mentioned, I helped her write the report, and I was also the architect for the recent exterior restoration work. I don't know if it's appropriate, but I have a PowerPoint. So if I can share my screen, then I can show you the PowerPoint. Otherwise, I can just talk quickly.
Well, I guess, you know, I'm not really sure that it's entirely necessary, but
Okay.
I'll ask the rest of the board if is that something that we want to see right now, or do you guys feel like there'd be some benefit?
Can I ask just staff, was the matter was pulled from consent so that we could hear Ms. Monk's comments? Is that right? That was the speaker. I don't know if it's in opposition, but the speaker who wanted to be heard on it. Is that right?
Correct.
There you go.
Yeah. Yes, Ms. Stiegler.
I think that Mrs. Monk's comments are very significant in terms of giving, this board is being looked to give advice to the state board as to whether there are additional areas and items that need to be reviewed for the report. At the time when we designated a few months ago, SESH, the historians, the architectural historians on the state board were incredibly vocal about how important Judith Monk's role had been in the arc of modern architecture in San Diego, and how little women are recognized for their role during this time period. And she did an amazing ability to bring together artists and architects and landscape and help mold the whole thing for the scientists to be able to get the most out of it and really use this research facility. And from our research that we did for the Monk residents, it overlapped with information about IGPP and letters that were written at the time that are from when the building was built, from other scientists acknowledging her role specifically. And we really feel that, that these sorts of items need to be added to the report so that the record is correct and gives her better and more fuller acknowledgement for her role in this building. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Polly, I would like to give you the opportunity, if you feel like there's anything in your presentation that would be clarifying or is above and beyond the information we've been provided, then I would say by all means, give the presentation.
Okay, well, I will say that the staff report was very complete, and a lot of what I had planned to say is somewhat repetitive, other than adding some beautiful photos of the building. But I can respond to the question about whether or not Judith Monk was considered in the National Register nomination. And her involvement specifically in the planning and design of IGPP is well documented in the report. She, along with her husband, Walter, were instrumental in selecting Lloyd Ruaco as the architect, in part because of his natural interpretation of modern architecture. She is noted in the report for that. We did not choose to nominate her specifically as a person under criterion B because she's not that property isn't the isn't most associated with her. If she were to be designated specifically for a property, she really should have been designated for SISH, because that is where she did, most of her design work. Whereas IGPP Monk Lab, while it does reflect some of Judith's design intentions, it's really the work of Master Architect Lloyd Ruaco. So that's why we made that decision.
Okay, thank you for that point of clarity. That was good. Any other comments?
Chair McCullough, Ms. Hayes has her hand raised.
Okay, Ms. Hayes.
Thank you, Chair McCullough. I just want to note that SOHO supports National Register listing for the IGPP Monk Laboratory as well under criteria A, B, and C, and criteria consideration G. SOHO has also submitted a letter to the State Historic Board noting our support of this property for the National Register as well. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. It looks like a hand up on Legacy 106. Is that correct?
I don't see that, Chair McCollum.
Oh, I have. Okay, I apologize. Any others? Any other public comment? Okay, so I'm going to close public comment. And when we open this up for board discussion here, and I think for the record, I know Ms. Coyle was going to be leaving earlier. Are you still on the call? Just so it looks like you are. So Ms. Coyle, if you're still on the call, let us know if.
Dave, I think she recused on this item.
Did she recuse? I thought she just had to leave early. I don't know. Anyways, okay. So that sounds fine. Let's go ahead and move on here. With those of you that are left, I guess maybe we'll start with you, Mr. Bowen. Any questions, comments?
Well, I definitely would support a positive recommendation on this. I'm a little confused about whether we need to be forwarding a recommendation farther up the chain as far as fleshing out the role of whether Judith should be, her role should be examined further. I'm a little confused about what our leeway is right now. So maybe the staff could clarify that for me.
Yeah, I think if I could just weigh in here, it seems to me like, maybe this should be sent back for further review based on Ms. Monk's comments.
Chair McCullough, can I speak to that for a second? So the State Historical Resources Commission will be considering this item on the 30th of this month. The board has been asked as an interested party by the State Historic Preservation Office to provide a recommendation on this item. So the recommendation to the commission can be that you don't feel that the report is complete. However, there is no time for it to be sent back and then seen by this board again.
Okay, I think that's pretty clear, but I'm not necessarily even suggesting myself that it's incomplete. I'm just suggesting that there's obviously been some information that's been put forth here in this discussion that maybe needs some further attention, and that maybe that's a recommendation that the concerns that Ms. Monk brought forward are reviewed and addressed or something like that in one way or another. How about you, Mr. Hutter?
Yeah, I think the comments from Ms. Monk were helpful and kind of illuminating. Obviously, there's a lot of background and a lot going on relating to this property and the previous property that we talked about. So from my perspective, I think my focus would be how do we do this logistically, in the time that's available to be helpful to to the state office and mindful of those considerations. So yeah, I would yield to others in terms of talking about the substance of it, but I think that I'm generally on board with it and would welcome or support a motion that would add those things in terms of emphasis.
Okay, all right, Mr. Winter.
Sorry, I lost my button. Yeah, I mean, it's just such a fantastic, building and property, and all the parts and pieces are so great. I mean, yeah, the question is sort of a similar question. It's sort of a process question. I mean, I'm happy just to say, let's, move it forward like it's kind of presented, but is there something else we wanted to do there? I don't know.
Yeah, well, I just feel that, I mean, we have I don't know. Well, let's keep going down the list here, and maybe going to you, Dr. Corleone. Any thoughts or comments?
Thank you. Yes, in terms of my understanding of what we've discussed, it seems like our role here today is either to recommend this report or not recommend it. That, because we don't have time for any revisions. And if that's the case, I would fall down on the side of recommending it despite its shortcomings. The type of scholarship I think that's required on Judith Monk would take longer than we have to do this. This is, I imagine somewhere, since the board for the state has already been vocal about her role, I think that we can assume that scholarship will be forthcoming, but I'm in favor of just making this recommendation.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, Ms. Stankowski.
I too am in favor of the recommendation. However, is it possible to add that the state consider the recommendations put forth by Mrs. Monk? And is it also possible for her to be able to present the same testimony during the state meeting?
Is that a question for staff?
Yes.
Okay. In terms of what Ms. Monk is allowed to present at the state hearing, that wouldn't be something that I could answer that question. Mm-hmm. However, the board can recommend that, certain things are included or looked into a little bit further. It's a recommendation. You're not actually doing the designation at this hearing. You can also take it piece by piece and recommend under certain criteria if that feels better. It's at your discretion.
I would be happy to make a motion to make the recommendation as suggested by staff, and with the added proviso that the state at least hear the suggestions made by Mrs. Monk and take those into consideration as well.
Okay, thank you for making the motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second the motion.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hutter. Any further discussion? I guess my only question would be, it seems to me that it would be good to, rather than just have Ms. Monk, present her point at that meeting, that there's some sort of background research or follow through done prior to the meeting to be prepared to offer more information, maybe even suggestions as part of this, because it's it's, I mean, in my mind, it's easier to have this stuff up front, right? And be able to review it first than to just hear it for the first time as a board member and try to process it. And that's what I think is difficult for us here today is, you know, I just think it'd be good to, you know, have something in moving forward that either substantiates or doesn't substantiate what the claims are that Mrs. Monk has made are. So I don't know, that would be my only concern. I don't know how you guys feel about that.
Well, we're between a rock and a hard place. I mean, today's the 22nd and the hearing is on the 30th, I believe. So there's not much we can do either way. But I think that in light of this, we can say in light of this new information, we'd ask the board to consider it, and the validation or verification of that is up to them.
Okay, well, I think you make a really good point. I mean, it really does come down to timing, I think, at this point. So, I mean, I'm in support.
McCullough, before we move any further, can I just work on clarifying the motion that Ms. Jankowski made? Because I think we need to be a little bit clear about what exactly we would like from Mrs. Monk's comments to forward to the state. Ms. Jankowski, is that okay with you if I just read off a summary that I had written down?
Yes.
Okay.
I assume that she has something written as well. And if there's an opportunity for her to present, I mean, if they're going to accept public comment during this, then we can just go ahead as with this nomination and she can put forward the case at the state meeting. I'm just trying to make sure that something like that happens, you know, unless it's too much of an onerous situation for her to do.
Yeah.
If I may, sorry, this is Deputy City Attorney Lauren Hendrickson. You know, in regards to the state procedures, we obviously don't have any control and we don't know exactly what those meetings or procedures look like. So if the board is concerned about certain information getting before the state, we would advise, you know, as Suzanne's going to do, to perhaps include clearly in your recommendation that the state reviews additional information. But in regards to, you know, state procedures, we don't have any control or knowledge of exactly how those procedures and meetings are run.
Yeah, and I think I was just kind of thinking, I mean, you could literally take her comments and they become part of, you know, not necessarily as, if like I said, if they can't be substantiated, then just more importantly that they're in the report as these comments were made by Mrs. Monk and at the board meeting, and that, you know, they should become part of the recommendations moving forward as record or for reference. I don't know how that would work, but that would be my thought.
Additionally, part of the board's consideration right now is whether there is enough to move forward a recommendation based on the evidence that is before you guys.
Yeah.
Right. Can I make a suggestion? And I'll just say it out loud. I don't know if it'll work or not, but why don't we just separate the two things and send them both forward? So, you know what I mean? Like, so one's just a clean version, and then there's, hey, we also think should be considered. Could that be a cleaner way to do that?
So,
I don't know if I'm suggesting something that's a terrible idea or not, but
just so everyone knows, the way this information gets to the State Historical Resources Commission is staff will write a letter to them after this meeting to capture the motion that was made. I think that saying that, you know, we just defer to Mary Monk's wishes is a little bit, I think we need to be a little bit sharper in what we're saying. So if you would indulge me, I wrote down what she said, summarized it. So if I could say that, and then maybe if you guys agree, and Ms. Jankowski as the maker of the motion, you know, I just happened to be scribing at that time. That's why I wrote it down. And I wasn't sure if anybody else was. So, you know, if that's okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So Mrs. Monk was requesting that the property, the nomination reevaluate Judith Monk's role in the property, reevaluate under criterion B, Walter Monk's significance at the national and international level. The nomination should address the interiors that were custom designed for IGPP. And then Under criterion B, there should be another look at Walter Monk's office spaces, and if the IGPP is the best representation of Walter's life. And Mrs. Monk, if you're still on the call and you feel like that's appropriate summarizing of what you eloquently stated before, please let us know.
Thank you. Yes, I'm still on the call, and that addresses the 4 items that I hoped would be addressed.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
And I
Okay,
did,
then I could change my motion to say that we just go ahead with the report as is, but the letter mentions that Mrs. Monk also appeared at the hearing and brought forth these ideas for your consideration. And not, like Mr. Winter said, not tie this all together and wind up making them confused. So I'd be willing to amend my motion to say that we make the recommendation as staff originally said here, and that in the letter you also mentioned Mrs. Monk's comments, but that doesn't have to be part of the motion.
I don't know. I don't know that really matters, honestly. I'm willing to support it either way here. So I think we have enough information, and I can support the motion myself with or without Mrs. Monk's comments. But I will say that I think I prefer just to include her comments as part of the recommendation as something that they should consider in making their decision. I think it's pretty simple. That's all I'm saying. But I think either way, Ms. Stankowski, I'm ready to support the motion. Mr. Hutter, you're the seconder. Are you okay with that?
Cindy, can you just clarify? Are you making that change to your motion? I'll go with you either way, but
Thank you, Mr. Hutter. Well,
Sure.
I think David is saying that we could go ahead with my sort of amended motion then.
Okay.
That's how I feel about it, unless staff has some concerns. But
Does staff understand the current motion?
Yes, I believe so. And Ms. Koleski, who worked on the nomination and the staff report, sorry, not the nomination, the staff report, agrees that the recommendations from Mrs. Monk are appropriate.
Okay, great. All right, so Mr. Hutter, you're okay with the second amendment? Okay, any further discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I had a question, just a clarification, really. There was mention about including or considering interiors designed by Rocco. Does that include, is there still existing custom designed furniture? I remember there was some discussion about a round chalkboard and really interesting things that we didn't have photos of, but I just wonder if we should include custom furniture in the additional wording we were thinking of.
Well, frankly, Andrew, I thought they were just using that space as a warehouse when I went by it. It didn't look like lab space anymore, and it broke my heart that that many of those properties there look like there's just stuff piled in them. So I wouldn't know for sure if that furniture is still there.
Chair McCullough, Ms. Pauley and Ms. Spunk both have their hands raised currently.
Okay, yes, go ahead, Ms. Pauley.
This is Carmen Pauley. I just wanted to point out that the furniture is noted in the nomination. There is extant built-in casework, and there is a custom conference table in the conference room and in the reading room, and built-in casework in the offices. It is noted.
And there also is the chalkboard and the other furniture still exists there. And I guess I was hoping that maybe it would be actually noted for designation as to it looking like a warehouse. actually that was probably due to COVID, or they had already just moved a bunch of things out of the area to take it out on an expedition.
Missed it. As long as it's in the report, then I'm satisfied.
And I would just ask that you reread the motion. I do hope that you ask that those items be further addressed.
Okay, we're kind of done here with public comments, but I guess we're all over the place here, and I see Miss Ingram has her hand up. Is there something that you want to say, Miss Ingram?
Hi, I'm Kameli Ingram. I'm Director of Capital Programs and Space Management for Scripps Institution of Oceanography. And I'm so glad that people went by to see the IGPP Monk Laboratory, but it is extremely actively used. And yes, you know, with COVID, people were not there as much as they have been, but there has been no removal of any of the original furniture. The tablecloths have been restored to, so they'll last another 50 years or more. The furniture for the library, the large conference room, everything is there, and we truly do treasure it.
Thank you. Okay, so I think we have a motion and a second. Staff, are you clear on what that is?
Correct. So Mr. Jankowski's motion is to recommend staff's recommendation to the Historical Resources Commission, the State Historical Resources Commission, and include in the report out letter to the State Historical Resources Commission the comments from Mrs. Monk.
Yes. Okay, great. So any further discussion? If not, I'll call the order, but I'll give you guys a minute here. Dr. Corleone, were you about to raise your hand?
No.
Okay. Okay, then I'm going to go ahead and call the vote, starting with Mr. Hutter.
Aye.
Mr. Bowen.
Aye.
Ms. Corleone.
Aye.
Ms. Stankowski.
Aye.
Mr. Winter.
Aye.
And that's a yes for me, so that stands unanimous. And that concludes our meeting. So thank you, everybody. Just as a quick reminder, our next board meeting will be Thursday, August 26, 2021. It'll be another virtual meeting, and I am going to adjourn the meeting here at, it looks like 3:40. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, staff, for a wonderful job.
Bye, guys.